Soraya, how's it going?
Woo, it's going well. How about you?
I'm doing good, doing good. Glad to be back behind the microphone, talking to some people that love music.
That is true. And I think, if people say that you, and I tag on, but if they say you love music, I think today's guests, I think they can join you in that group.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah, my shirt's kind of a hint, maybe.
It is, but why don't you let everyone know who's joining us today?
Yeah, so today we have two special guests, and those are the co-hosts of the podcast, a podcast which I love very much. You Don't Know Mojack, Brant and Ryan from Western Canada. And these two have decided to go through the entire SST catalog sequentially from beginning to end. And they're about halfway into it. And they say if they're still around, they're going to make it to the end. So I think that's 4 or 5 years down the road. But we've got Brant and Ryan on today, fellow podcasters, and I'm very excited about this because I listen to their podcasts all the time. So,
and I do too. And for our listeners who don't know it, you can find it on all the podcast streaming platforms. You Don't Know Mojack, but look, this is a daunting task to go through that whole SST catalog in chronological order.
Yes.
By release. It's pretty amazing, and they do it with a lot of heart.
Yes.
A lot of good humor and a lot of insight too. So.
Oh, absolutely.
Should be fun. So I don't know, Jeff. Let's get started.
Let's do it.
Let's go. Hi, this is Soraya.
And this is Jeff.
Our podcast is called Paisley Stage Raspberry and Rhyme.
A podcast where the two of us play music that we like and share anecdotes and background about the tunes.
We hope you'll join our conversation. And without further ado, a grooviar.
Let's get groovy. Hey, there's Ryan.
Hello, hello.
Hello. How are you doing?
Good, and you?
Doing great.
Where's Mr. Brant? There he is.
Hey.
There he is. We're very excited to have you guys. How are you guys doing before we actually start recording? I mean, the recording's going, but we'll edit out this part.
Good. How are you?
Good. Looks like you guys have a pro setup.
I wouldn't go that far.
No. We jam Icano.
Excellent.
No.
We know that. Jeff and I know that setup too.
It's very good to have you guys on.
Thanks for asking.
Yeah, thanks so much for the invite. We're honored. We hope we have something to contribute.
Well, we are 100% sure that you've got more than enough to share. And for our listeners, Jeff, why don't you introduce our guest today one more time?
Yes. So as we were talking about in our introduction, Soraya, today we have two fellow podcasters of a podcast that we both love. We've got Brant and Ryan today from You Don't Know Mojack, and we've talked about what a daunting task these guys have decided to take on. But you're both from Western Canada, as we understand, and you guys decided for some reason to take on the entire SST discography, going sequentially through every SST Records, which is completely fascinating and a concept that I absolutely love. But you guys might be a little crazy to go through this entire discography. And hopefully you make it to the end. We were talking about the fact that you guys are about halfway through-ish, somewhere around there. So you're still about 4 or 5 years off if you continue at the pace you're going. But anyways, welcome to the podcast. We're very honored to have you guys here today.
Thanks so
for
much.
having us.
Yeah.
We're big fans as well. So thrilled to be on your show.
Okay, so we have to start with the basic question. So Brant and Ryan, how did you guys meet and where did you decide to start this project?
Ooh. Do
you remember, Ryan?
I probably remember both, but you can clean up and fix, all my mistakes as usual. I'm pretty sure that Brant and I met when I was working at a record store. I was probably a couple of years out of high school, and I was wearing a really obscure band t-shirt, this band called Pigment Vehicle, which is a band from Victoria, British Columbia, Canada. And they're a crazy like jazz punk band. If people know the Saccharine Trust Surviving You Always album, that's kind of what Pigment Vehicle sound like, but like way more. And anyway, so it's very odd that someone would walk into the store, as Brant did, and said, "Hey, nice shirt." And the the rest is kind of history, but we ended up slowly getting to know each other as he was a customer, eventually playing in a band together for several years. Brant kept playing in bands after I finished university and moved away. And then one day I was in my office at work, and Brant texted me and he said, "Hey, do you want to do this with me?" And before he was done the text, I said, "Yep." And it was kind of, and that's like 7 years ago, and we had kept in touch for a long time, but always really good friends, and it's a great excuse to hang out every weekend. We hope we get to the end too, trust us.
So Brant, why SST? Why did you decide to tackle this beast?
Well, I mean, like, full disclosure, like, there's a huge community of like SST diehards, right, that know way more about SST than we did or possibly still do. And so it wasn't like, I don't think we were SST diehards necessarily. Ryan probably knew a bit more about it, or was a fan of more of the bands than I was. I knew all the big bands, right, and some of the more obscure bands, but it was like, I mean, obviously we're huge music fans. Anybody who listens to our show knows we like all kinds of music, right? And like, so I think it was maybe almost an opportunity to like learn about some of those bands ourselves. For me anyways, I was like, I probably had thought at one point I should try and listen to every record on SST just so I know what they all sound like. And, why not do this at the same time? Maybe, I don't know. I mean, it's an iconic label, right? So like, if you have the idea, I guess, to do something like that, why not start with the best?
I love that.
There you go, man. Okay, so Jeff and I, we're avid listeners, but we want to know, and some of the interesting episodes are when you have guests on, and we share a guest, the incredible storyteller that is Joe Nolte.
Yeah.
But we want to know, who are the guests that are your unicorns? Like Jeff and I, we talk about Susanna Hoffs is our unicorn, Kendra Smith is another one. But who is your unicorn? Who are the guests that you want to have on to sit and have a chat with?
Well, unfortunately, a few at the top of my list aren't with us anymore. Like Zoog's Rift would be amazing to have on.
100%.
Obviously, it would be cool to have Greg Ginn on, but that's probably not going to happen. It would be cool to have, Henry Rollins on, if he would talk about, maybe like a specific album. Like we tried to get Henry on for the Family Man album, which was his spoken word album.
Right.
And I thought that would be cool because, that's not something you don't really hear him go into great detail, on specific albums. So I thought that would be cool. I don't know. Does anybody come to mind for you, Ryan?
I mean, you hit on some of the bigger names for sure, but it's funny, when Soraya asked the question, the first one that came to my mind would be Lou Barlow.
I knew that. I was going to say.
Yeah, I mean, I would love to, of course, have Jay Mascis, but I have a very, very deep and broad soft spot for Lou Barlow, not just as a bass player, but for like almost anything he's done. I love Dino, don't get me wrong, but Lou's not really doing many interviews, so that's a unicorn for me.
Nice. So yeah, we definitely share that sentiment with you and trying to get certain people on. I was actually
Who are your unicorns? I'm going to ask you questions because I'm a fan of your show.
Okay, Jeff, who's yours?
So definitely Sue Hoffs would be one.
Yep.
And then there are many who have passed that we wish we could have had on. David Roback being one, Will Glenn. I know that you guys spoke about both of them on your Opal episode. But I think those are probably are my main ones. Soraya, what about you?
Sue Hoffs.
Yeah.
We've gone down the road. We've got 3 of them. We've had 3 on the show, 3 Bangles, and La Susana is number 1.
I feel like that's obtained. I feel like you can get her, maybe.
Yeah, your Susanna Hoffs is kind of like our Carl Alvarez. He's our last descendant to get on,
I don't think you're going to get Kendra Smith, though.
No.
I don't think that's going to happen.
No, we've debated it and talked about it, and we've kind of put that one to bed, but that we got nothing but love for her. And but yeah,
not for lack of trying, right?
no,
So
yeah.
that is for damn sure.
but we did come to the conclusion that we feel that she would rather be left alone, and we would like to respect that. So
For sure. Yep.
Yeah.
I've had people politely decline and as well, and you have to respect that for sure.
absolutely. So a question that I had, I like how you guys have broken your podcast into different segments. You have the spiel segment, you have the history lessons 1 and 2, you have the ballot result, all Minutemen references, if I'm not mistaken.
I think so.
So how did you guys come up with these segments? Was it something that you came to together? Did one of you throw out one of the ideas? Because it's a great format. I love the format. It's got a great flow. But
Thank you.
Who came up with that? Or was it a team effort?
I don't know. I kind of feel like I would hate to listen to our first few episodes, or probably our first 30 episodes. They're probably terrible.
First 100.
Especially my interviews. Like, I would probably be mortified to listen to them. So I want to say we kind of adopted that maybe as we went along.
I think we had it pretty early on. I recall, like, even in my Mojack binder that I use every week, I've got like our original outline still there, scribbled down on the parchment. And I feel like it was an idea, but once Brant got the hookup to get the Mike Watt sound bites, it was a done deal from then. I'm pretty sure that it was really early on, if not the first episode, and it was really the Mike Watt hookup.
Yeah.
Mike was one of the first and earliest supporters. And, we wouldn't be here without Mike showing us that support so early on before no one knew about us.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. He did those little sound bites for us, I think, before we even had an episode out.
Yeah.
Wow.
So how cool is that?
He's great. Great. I've had the opportunity to meet him on a couple occasions. He's such a personable guy.
Oh, yeah.
So down to earth. And what an amazing musician.
Yeah.
Yeah.
100%.
So we have somebody like that for our podcast as well. The drummer of the 3 o'clock, Danny Bonaire, for our podcast is primarily focused on the Paisley Underground. And he was one of our early supporters from the scene and definitely helped us out a lot. When you say so,
100%. And as the episodes have gone on, I always like to joke with Jeff, like, we have these godfathers from the Paisley Underground that really have been supportive and have guided us a lot too. So it's pretty cool to see, fans and artists that we enjoy collaborating, even, with sound bites or just support. It's really cool.
And you have Ronnie too.
Yes,
we awesome.
Do. Yes, we do.
He is a special person.
100%. Yeah.
We have much love for Ronnie.
Speaking of which, Ronnie just announced that he's going to be on Mike Watt's podcast. So
cool.
I don't know.
Yep. So he's going to be on Watt from Pedro in the summertime, I believe.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah.
Nice.
So he's a mover and a shaker.
Yeah, that's apparent. He seems to know everybody.
Yes, he does.
Yeah.
We wanted to ask your thoughts about this book that a lot of people have been reading and sharing thoughts on, and it's the Corporate Rock Sucks, the Rise and Fall of SST Records.
I have it right here, so we'll give it a plug for everybody.
There you go. See?
Right there.
Yeah. Wow, it's under like 7 books and DVDs already. Brant's he's just grinding through the material for
preparing for the next episode, Ryan. Those are my recommends for the next episode.
Nice. Feels
always hard at work.
Yeah.
So thoughts, Ryan, Brant, what are your thoughts on this book? Or do you think Jim Rowland's got it right in the story that he's telling?
Well, we actually have Jim on our episode that's about to come out next week. So I don't know when this comes out, but the episode with Jim will probably be out by the time this airs. And we had a great chat with him, and we've known Jim for a while, and just another cool guy, and one of those people like this is the kind of thing where you could, I think, easily get your back up, and be protective of like your knowledge and stuff like that. And I mean, Jim put me in touch with Kim Thale after he interviewed him, and was just like, here you go, instead of going, well, I got this exclusive from my book, so you can't talk to him, and Jim's just an awesome dude that way. And has always been super nice to us, and always like gives us a shout out and stuff, which we really appreciate. And Ryan and I are like nerds, right? Like we read a ton of these music books and stuff, like lots of them. And so for us to be in one is like a huge thrill for us. And and the book is awesome. Like he did he get it right? I don't know if anybody's ever going to get the story right, because there's just so many layers to it, right? And like and without having full participation from Chuck and Greg, I think it's going to be hard to get all the details. Like we certainly don't, but I mean the nuts and bolts are all there, and he unearthed all kinds of things that we didn't even know about, and it's a super fun read and super entertaining, and like I really enjoyed it. Like I said, Ryan can speak to this too, but we read tons of books like these, and I haven't plowed through one that quickly in a long time. And I'm like, soaking in SST every single week, and and I still plowed through it. Like I was still entertained by it thoroughly,
Yeah, and you usually have like a dozen books on the go, and to hold your attention and focus and get through one in particular, it's quite a feat, and it does speak to the book. But Brant is quite right. Jim's been super generous to us, as so many people have. But it is a really, really great book, and lots of great. I love reading books about music so that I can learn and discover more, and then try and trick Brant or try and blow his mind. I found something out that you didn't know about, and not so much for this book because we were both digesting it at the same time, but it was it's awesome. I mean, people should and it's one of those books where you can be a casual SST fan or have just kind of passing knowledge, like you just know Black Flag, you just know Husker Du, right? And it's written in such a way that just having that very basic knowledge, it'll suck you in and keep you along for the ride for the whole book. So it's good.
Nice. I had an opportunity to meet Jim when the Keith Morris book came out, and the two of them were doing a book signing down here in San Diego. And I had an opportunity to meet him. That was a great experience. So I haven't had a chance to dig into the book yet, so I'm looking forward to it, and looking forward to hearing your conversation with him.
I'll say this too, like I've gotten to be, on friendly terms with a lot of SST people on Facebook and stuff, especially, and, keep in touch with a lot of them by email and text message and stuff, because they're just super friendly people. And like I've seen so many of them like post about, how great the book is and how well Jim captured that era. So I mean, don't take our word for it, take the word of, all those people with way more street cred on the subject than us, because they were there, and it's getting, I would say, universal acclaim from that crowd.
Yeah, we when we just had him on too, I think the interview is about an hour long or so. I just finished editing the episode, and we hardly talk about the book at all during the interview. We really just talk more about Jim and his story, which is equally as cool and interesting.
That's awesome.
Oh, I like that.
Very cool. Yeah, I'm excited to hear this one. So I have a question for you outside of the podcast. You're both musicians. I know, Brant, you play guitar. Ryan, you were a bassist, right?
Yeah, long ago.
So what these days, are you guys still doing music? Still playing music?
I tried to take it up again. In the last couple of years, it's been difficult. I mean, bad timing kind of too, right?
Right.
During, I kind of was at home a lot, and I'm like, I'm going to go and dust off the old Thunder broom, and really got back into it again, built up my calluses again, was slowly starting to get out there, and have a few jam sessions, and then it kind of unfortunately kind of fell away, just due to time and a bunch of other stuff. I always say to my wife, though, I mean, like, if I could have kept, writing music with my friends in like an office space and playing a dingy club like twice a month for, a round of beers, I'd still be doing that now if I could.
Nice. I love that. Brant, how about you?
Yeah, I'm kind of the same. I haven't played in a band for many years. Ryan and I both have kids. We both have pretty crazy work schedule, and then this podcast takes up a lot of our time, what little free time we have, right? Yeah. And when the pandemic first hit, I was like, I work at I book a club, a live music venue. Nice. And all of a sudden I wasn't doing that for the first time in years. So I had all this free time. So I'm like, same thing Ryan just said. I put new strings on my guitar and built up my calluses, and I was like, ooh, YouTube, because that wasn't a thing when Ryan and I were playing in bands.
Oh yeah.
So I
learned so much stuff on YouTube.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so I'm like, the YouTube's awesome. I'm like, pretty much, I'm learning all these cover songs and like riffs and stuff off YouTube, and then playing my guitar, all day, every day. And then it dropped down to a couple hours a day, and then to no hours a day. And it's been hung up on the wall I probably haven't touched it in a year and a half. So
I can relate. All right. So you guys, one of the main reasons, other than us being big fans of your podcast, one of the main reasons that we wanted to talk with you guys is there are some connections between the scene that we cover, the Paisley Underground, and the SST discography. Not a whole lot, but there's a little bit of overlap. And we wanted to mention some things. And we won't go into any details, because if anybody needs details, go to You Don't Know Mojack, because there's some great details. In fact, I was re-listening to episode 103 today, your Opal Happy Nightmare Baby. And Brant, man, you did some digging. If anybody needs to know anything about Opal, listen to this episode, because it has everything. The history lesson is insane. Yes. So we're talking about this album. So it's the Opal Happy Nightmare Baby. For us, it's a connection with, we have got David Roback. Oh, looky there.
Twins.
Triplets. So David Roback of the Rain Parade, who's the big part of the Paisley Underground, as you guys mentioned in your podcast. And we recently came across this little CD, which was a reissue, and there's
Ooh.
a story behind this that we were hoping to talk about on one of our podcasts. We'll see if that happens, because this was supposed to happen, and it got to the point, obviously, where it was manufactured and didn't quite make it to commercial release. And there's a story behind that. But you guys have any general thoughts about Opal Happy Nightmare Baby? In my opinion, it's definitely a fluke for SST. But
Yeah, you know, I was thinking about this today, and I probably should have listened to that episode too, because
Episode 103.
I used to be like an encyclopedia for this shit, and I don't know if it's like all the SST stuff I've crammed into my brain these last few years, or if it's just getting older, but I can't remember anything. But I listened to this. I don't think I've listened to this record until that episode, and we're on episode 214 now.
214,
so
yeah.
It's been a while since I heard it. I listened to it today, and
Me too.
I was struck by like how sparse the production was, in a good way, though.
Yeah.
I think, like, the song "A Falling Star" was. It's like, I think it's just like guitar and tambourine, you know.
yeah.
I probably said this in episode 103, but when I listen, and Brant knows this stuff way more than me. This is not my sweet spot, but I probably said this, like I said, way back, however many years that was. It really sounded like T-Rex to me.
Yes.
A bunch of times it was, and it's like, what is going on here? You know, it's so cool in the weirdest way.
Yeah.
And I can tell you this, and you probably have heard this too, but I know for a fact, anecdotally, this was a huge record with the SST crew, like around SST. This was a big one. Like, it got played in the office
That actually,
a lot. And
that surprises me when I was listening to your episode again, and that came up, as well as the one thing that was a surprise again to me today was when you mentioned that they were slated for a second release on SST with a single. I think it was 255 or something like that.
I was going to ask you, Jeff. I was hoping you knew something about that.
I don't.
Do you know if that ever came out?
To my knowledge, it never came out, but it was slated as an SST release, the single.
It's just 3 songs off of this record, as far as I can tell.
Right.
Like maybe an editor of one of them or something. But like, somebody told us online at some point that they saw a copy of this. They remember seeing a copy of it. But like, Ryan has, what's that CD, Ryan, that came out way later that you have a copy of?
Oh, Fast Gatto.
That's like an SST album that never came out. But I don't know, like, what is that you have, Ryan? Like, just a promo copy or something?
It's a real like first round production. Like, maybe like a CD test pressing. I don't know, but it's got like a real, you know, production print insert and jacket. And I know that Opal single, when you look, you know, through the dark web and stuff, you can see pictures of it that make it look like it really came out. But until I hold it in my hands, it could be a doctored photo. I don't know.
But there's pictures of like the CD, and it's like a manufactured CD. It's not like a CDR or something like that, like on Discogs.
Yeah, I've looked.
I need to know, because I need to know if we're going to do an episode for it or not.
Yeah.
So
that's it's interesting when you guys get to an episode where it's got a catalog number that's slated but wasn't actually released. I think 107 and 108 were
Painted Willie.
Yeah.
Painted Willie.
Yeah.
Which weren't. So then you guys have to be creative, right? Because you still need an episode 107. You can't go from 106 to 109. So you got to do something. And in those cases, I think you guys did best.
Brant's wheels are already turning. Don't worry.
There's a lot of those coming. Catalog numbers that never got used, and I mean, it's going to drive me nuts not knowing what they were slated for.
Right.
If anything.
I love that.
I was hoping you could tell. I wrote that down. Ask Jeff about SST 255, the Rocket Machine CD single.
I've been looking for that for 40 years. No luck. So no clue. My guess is they maybe something like this where it was manufactured and then held back, but whereas this kind of got leaked out a little bit here and there. I'm
Do
guessing.
you think it's all like buried in a landfill with all of the Atari ET video games or something?
Yeah, exactly.
I keep hearing that that's going to get reissued. It kind of seems to get announced that the Happy Nightmare Baby that they seem to announce like every couple years that the reissue is imminent, and then nothing. And I wonder now with David being gone if that is ever going to happen.
So we know a little bit about that. And this
I wouldn't hold my breath waiting for it.
This is the reissue copy. This isn't not the SST copy. This was the one that was produced in 2019, but there's legally.
Jeff and I both, somehow we have copies of something that was never released, but is available on the internets.
So, say no more.
But,
and not from an insider.
Do you know a guy? You know a guy who knows a guy.
Amazon. but that's the thing is then, somebody gets a copy or has copies like the ET game. And wasn't that a couple of years ago, someone found like in a landfill, a huge box with that game. And then, the market just went. But with that one, there's been so much lore about this re-release. And then, unfortunately, David Roback leaves us. And all the little information we know is, no.
It's too bad you can't get Will Glenn on the show either, because he played in every Paisley band ever, I think.
Literally.
He played in all of them.
It's true. Yeah, played with the 3 o'clock, played Rain Parade. I mean, yeah.
Unfortunately, he's not with us, so
yeah.
So we have a thing on our show called the SS Tree, right? where artists are on the tree and and interesting ways that people connect to SST. And Keith Mitchell was in Monitor, who were really connected to the Meat Puppets, as I'm sure you know. So that's another SST connection with Opal.
Actually, so I was familiar with Roman's Monitor. I'm not familiar with the connection with the Meat Puppets with Keith Mitchell.
So Lori, what's her name? Lori O'Connell? O'Connor? She was in Monitor. She managed the Meat Puppets early on, and that Monitor album, there's a Meat Puppet song on it.
Mm-hmm.
Like them performing a song on the Monitor album.
That's right. Yes.
Yep.
Yes. Ah, nice. Meat Puppets are one of my all-time favorite bands.
Yeah.
Great band. Yeah. Well, we're going to sneak something in on you guys that you're not expecting. So David Roback is a connection for both of our podcasts, since he's part of the Rain Parade and hence part of the Paisley Underground. Bangles also has a connection with SST by way of their original bassist, Annette Zelenskis. And it's with this.
Yes.
Yes. So Blood on the Saddle, an interview that you guys did with Greg Davis of the band. So Annette from the Bangles actually made it onto SST by way of this album. How did you guys like talking to Greg when you talked about this album?
Greg was awesome to talk to. I was going to sneak it in on you, so you scooped me, but this is the best Bangles album right here.
Agreed.
I think, or this EP.
Without a doubt.
And Ryan got me this. You got me this, Ryan, off of eBay, because Ryan's like Mr. Discogs in eBay, and back when there was no Discogs. And I got this. I wanted this because I was a huge fan when I was a kid of the movie Thrashin', and the song. There's a song on here called "Want You," which is the best Bangles song ever. And
I'm not going to disagree.
And it's in that movie. And I was gonna spring this on you and say, what is the SST connection?
Nice.
Foiled once again.
So that explains why, Brant, why you're doing a podcast with Ryan here. Because if this guy can can get you a EP from the early Bangles, he's worth sticking around. So
That's right.
I'd say he's a keeper.
He puts
Yeah.
up with a lot for the, the steady flow of filling his want list. Yes.
But yeah, that's a good record. That Blood on the Saddle record. That's a that's an SST like dark horse for sure.
And quite different from the EP that you just showed. So Annette's definitely showing some different sides. I mean, there's some rawness to both of those releases, which is why I prefer the EP like you, Brant. But
Yeah.
Ryan, were you going to say something about Blood on the Saddle?
No, I mean, just, it's one of those hidden gems on the label. And, Brant was somewhat alluding to this kind of experience that we're having with the label where, we went through Opal, like however many years ago, same with Blood in the Saddle. And you flash it up and I'm just like, oh man, Blood in the Saddle. I got to listen to that, every time. It's been so long. But, we do have, like, it's incredibly, stimulating, fun. We get to hang out every weekend. But it's so weird listening to music with such a intended purpose in the way that we do every week, right? Similar to you guys. And then, you're so hyper focused and you listen to it and then you're just like, what happened last week? I can't even remember it. Because you immerse yourself in it, And so you show that. I'm just like, oh, dude. And there's other excellent Blood in the Saddle. I haven't listened to those records forever too, right?
Yeah, I can totally relate to what you're saying, because after we do an episode, then we're on to researching for the next episode and just being immersed with that next record. And you just get so into it, right? You're so into the record. And then
and our whole thing is like to apply, some of that SST work ethic to our show. So we try and do this. We do every week. We go every week with our show, and like, so it's really like on to the next thing.
Understood.
Yeah.
Soraya, what do we have next?
Episode 189, but the last confession.
Yes.
All right. And not surprisingly, one of your longer episodes. And I think
yeah. Thank Joe Nolte.
Well, thank you guys for putting us in touch with Joe, and one of my favorite guests that we've had. And we when we got to our 200th episode, I challenged Ryan to pick 5 records from the previous 100 records that blew his mind, and then I would do the same. And I made a stipulation that he couldn't pick anything by, like, Dinosaur Jr., Husker Du, Firehose, Minutemen, Descendants. Like, I wanted to hear, like, what were your 5 obscure picks, and this was one of mine.
Oh, yeah. Nice.
This is just a phenomenal record.
Agreed. Yeah. And I think, was it Going Gone that made your ballot result record? So
the second you flashed it up, the song just starts going in my head. It's like that's not just an earworm, it's an ear. Right. Like, everything, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that's got to be, like, I don't know, that's not just us, I don't think. Hey, that's probably one of their more popular songs. It has to be.
It's very catchy. It's a very catchy song. Yeah.
And Ryan's a big Chemical People fan, so Dave Nasworthy is the drummer on here. So that was a cool connection too.
Yeah, that's huge.
So one thing, just side railing for a little bit, one thing that an advantage that you guys have going through every single episode, you're not just hitting the big ones, right? You're not just hitting the Huskers, you're not just hitting the Black Flags and the Minutemen, right? So you get to hear some of these obscure records. I think, Brant, you mentioned when we first started talking that you probably didn't hear every single SST record before you started to do this podcast. So you get to hear these obscure releases, and that's something that I think is very special about your episode. You're not skipping over anything. Everyone's getting hit. No,
we in fact those are our favorite episodes. Or I think. I don't want to speak for Ryan, but for me, like
often they are, because it's where we have the biggest discovery a lot of times, right? You know, it's one thing to, you know, learn a new tidbit about Husker Du or, you know, one of the big bands, right? It's one thing to learn or find some little quote. But when you are learning about a band for the first time, discovering their music for the first time, like all at once, when you're doing that week-long immersion into it, it's amazing. And, you know, even when we're not huge fans of the music itself, you know, we still become huge fans of the fact that it exists and the story and, you know, how it's part of the SST fabric. It's just amazing.
Yeah, a great example of that ant is I was going to say is a band called Treacherous Jaywalkers. Ooh. In the sense that, like, and you get to know these people too, right? So they're like sending you stuff like early cassettes and things, you know, that, so it's just awesome because we don't just listen to that record, you know, we like immerse ourselves in like bringing it ourselves up to speed, or any bands that they were in before the band we're talking about, and all of that stuff. So just like learning the story of like the evolution of the band, and sometimes with SST, like Trotsky's a good example of that. I'm sure you're going to bring them up at some point, that have a crazy history, you know, a 10-year+ history just as musicians before SST, right? So
yeah. Good segue, Brant.
I have a question for you about Trotsky though.
Oh,
what because I'm no expert on the Paisley Underground, but I know a fair amount about it, and definitely all the bigger bands and stuff. And of course it's your podcast, so you can talk about anything you want, but do you think Trotsky are generally considered part of the Paisley Underground?
I don't,
because you never see their name come up in association with that scene.
I wouldn't say so. Soraya, were you going to say something?
All I was going to say is this is where, just as you and Ryan were talking about, looking into the story of the musicians that make up bands and where they start to connect with one band or another. This is exactly like a perfect example of it, because then you have someone like Kjell Johansson, you know, with Narrow Adventure connected to Wednesday Week. So, you know, Jeff and I like to talk about a Paisley Underground kind of nucleus, and then kind of these ripples and alternate but connecting universes. And I think this is a great example of that. And like Vitas and Joe Nolte, you know, Vitas did so much producing for a lot of bands, people at Radio Tokyo. So, you know, we've got connections, but I think, you know, I'm a purist. Jeff is a little less so, but I'm a purist, and I believe in the Danny Bonaire definition of Paisley Underground. And even Sid Griffin, you know, in John Doe's book, he said, Paisley Underground, the core is these four bands: 3 O'Clock, Dreams of Bangles, and Rain Parade. And so I would say, Jeff likes to add people to that, but you know, I don't know. That's just my thought. I think we have artists that connect and disconnect, and in doing that, they really kind of enrich the experience for fans. I don't know, Jeff, what do you think?
Yeah, so I would definitely agree, but much like you guys have the SS tree, so there's these connections, and we started off the podcast thinking it was going to be about 6 episodes. This is what are we on, Soraya?
We're somewhere 166? In the 160s, yeah. So
we thought it was going to be 6 episodes. We're at 166 now today, and the thought was just to stick with the Paisley Underground, and that is definitely our nucleus. But once we started digging into things, and the last came up, and several discussions from all 4 bands, and there was at least one member from each saying that they wanted to join the last.
Yeah.
And the last was a big influence on them. And then once we got into the last, we started going outside of that. But to your question, Brant, I wouldn't say that they're Paisley Underground by any stretch of the imagination, but definitely in that tree of Los Angeles bands that making this independent music. And we love all the members of the band. And I know you guys had Kel on when you did your episode 197 talking about baby, right?
Yep.
So
awesome.
Great stories. And you guys were mentioning how you dig into other related records or even more albums from the discography, and just the build up to this was great on your episode, just talking about everything that came to this and the history behind it. But we love this record, we love this band, and we know that you have several more episodes coming up on this band because they put out several SST releases. But so your thought with Baby, and even prior to the episode on this, the band had come up several times in several of your other episodes. So how was it talking to Kel when you were talking about Baby?
Is Vitas his signature a speech bubble?
It is.
That's awesome.
It is. Yeah.
Awesome.
Well, before I say anything about that record, I'll just thank you again for putting us in touch with Cale. That was awesome, and super fun guest, and I loved learning about where the cover photo came from.
Right.
And hence the album title. Right?
Yep.
Yeah.
But yeah, like all these people are just so cool, like and they're just such nice people, and like they're like always like thankful that we're doing this, right? And like they're always, lots of them seem surprised that somebody's even interested, which just blows my mind.
Yeah, because there's so many of us, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I know at least a dozen people that are huge fans, as we are, of your podcast. So we're definitely not, I mean, it's a niche, but not a very tiny niche, right? So
well, that's the cool thing about podcasting, right? Is like, who gives a shit? You're catering to a niche market, but like there's people that want to hear from Kel Johansson for sure, right? And
absolutely.
And I don't think some of those people realize that.
I think we've run into that too, Soraya, right?
Yeah.
So, thank you for carrying waving that banner, waving that flag.
Oh yeah, I've heard people on your show all the time express that sentiment, and that feels good too, that you're putting stuff on the record. That's a big thing for us, right? Is
like just kind of connecting to this, Jeff and I have talked about it before. Joe Nolte, I know we're not about Trotsky, but Joe Nolte's had a number of health issues over the past couple of years. And when we had the opportunity to speak to him, and we've talked to him twice at least, the fact that he has all these stories and there's all these connections, Jeff and I were just really kind of in awe, thinking, why hasn't anyone put these stories down? Why is there no record? And I was just glad that we've done it, that you guys are doing it too. There's a real value to, I think, what we're all doing, and that is creating some sort of oral history of a record label, of these releases, of these bands. And I think, Ryan, about what you said with bands that perhaps you didn't know too much about, but their stories being told and being remembered. And I think that's something that, to me, it's not lost on me, that when we do an episode, we're really helping to kind of tell this story. And I find it fascinating. That's why I like the work you're doing. The two of
Thank you.
Really, it's really extraordinary.
Absolutely.
Oh, likewise. I was gonna just more to show my street cred or anything, I was gonna bring up a few episodes of yours that I really liked, if that's okay.
Please.
And one of them, because I actually, believe it or not, one time thought about a different concept for a podcast. This is before Ryan and I did
believe
ours.
it. I believe
and
it.
I was thinking to myself, what would be a cool episode, like not a whole podcast, but an episode. And it was my thought was to do one on Down There Records.
Oh,
and you guys did one, and it was super awesome. But I wanted to hear more about this band,
Divine Weeks. Yeah.
and I wanted to hear more about this band. So I'm
the Doctor's.
Ooh, Doctor's Children.
those are both totally wicked records. All those records on Down There are really good. And it was super cool to hear Steve talk about that label, and I just loved his attitude about it, where it was just like, as soon as it started to be not fun because it was getting like, he was getting too many demo submissions or whatever, he's like, yeah, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah, right. That's hilarious, right?
Yeah.
He built it up to that point, and then I think he ended the episode by teasing that there may be some Down There related stuff coming, and I think he's already started to do that. So yeah,
That's awesome.
That was a great conversation.
That's so cool that you've had Steve on a few times, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's been a big help, a big support for us as well too.
Yeah.
So when I look at the SST discography, and I know, like I mentioned, you guys are about halfway through, and I look into the future, and I just see records that are coming up, and I know
Oh my gosh,
I know there's going to be some discussions coming up, and I'm getting very excited.
keep them coming. Oh yeah,
keep going. But
yeah,
there's a bunch that all of them are great to listen to, but there's definitely some that are in our wheelhouse that we're really looking forward to. So we definitely hope that you guys keep doing this, and it sounds like you guys are having a lot of fun. Soraya and I were talking about before we came on that we love how you guys interject humor into your episode. there's passion, and one thing that I really appreciate about you guys is the fact that there's a level of honesty that I don't think that I can muster up. And that's if you have a release on there, you have no qualms about saying that it's not your favorite. That's something that would be hard for me to do, but like Soraya, you guys are quick to give your honest opinions, and I really appreciate that.
Oh, thanks. Yeah. Well, fortunately, 95% of it or more is totally awesome. And even if it's not something you're going to go back to,
we can find something. We can find something good, redeeming about almost everything, right?
Or you can appreciate what they were doing or the artistry of it, even if it's not your cup of tea. You can appreciate why some people would like it, right? Or
absolutely.
Except for the Master Dick EP, I think. That might be the one where, like, forget it. Or wait, Brant, you were hard on Star Power, right?
Just because of the corporate rock. Yeah.
Two Sonic Youth releases, one of Brant's favorite bands, I think got the harshest reviews by us.
I was thinking about SST and the Paisley Underground, and like, maybe a little bit about how they're related. And I was thinking, like, if you think about the other big bands that either weren't on SST or weren't part of the Paisley scene in LA, like like say a lot of the hardcore bands, like say TSOL or even Suicidal Tendencies or some of those kinds of bands, they were really rejecting everything that came before. But like the Paisley bands, obviously all were big fans of Neil Young and Buffalo Springfield, and of course the Byrds, and the SST crew was not afraid to wear like their love of Sabbath and Blue Oyster Cult and CCR and
Blue Cheer,
Blue Cheer, free jazz, all that stuff. Yeah, the Grateful Dead.
Yeah.
I really think that makes SST stand out, especially as you go deeper into the catalog. And same with those Paisley bands. They really were not afraid to say, no, this stuff's cool. You can be into punk rock and not shun everything that came before that. And that's something even I did when I was a kid, right? Like, okay, I'm a punk now. I can't like AC/DC anymore. Right?
Yeah, right.
And these people didn't do that. Because and that's that's cool. That's interesting to me.
Absolutely. When the Husker Du single for 8 Miles High by the Byrds came out, I was thinking, what are these guys doing? These punkers from Minneapolis, and they're doing a Byrds song. And fantastic cover, by the way. I absolutely love that single. But yeah, to your point, it's embracing what came before, but still doing something absolutely new with it.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So, favorite SST release? Can we have you guys be so bold?
Ooh.
Or is that too big of a question? Or
can I give you my favorite Paisley Underground release instead?
Yeah, do that. I don't want to answer.
I picked out a big stack.
I'll answer pressed.
This is not my favorite, but you guys turned me on to this record, so thank you for that.
Oh, yeah.
This is a good one. I didn't know this band even existed, to be honest with you, until I heard about them on your show.
Dude, I read about that in the book. We Can Be the New Wind.
There you go.
I just read about them like for the first time ever last week in that new book.
This isn't a favorite either. I pulled out a whole bunch of records, so
okay.
I have to flash them at least.
Please share. Yeah.
Do you know this record, Dream 6? Is this a Paisley record?
I'm not super familiar with that. I know that I had that at one time, and I don't have that now. But it's a great title and a great cover.
So it's Jim Mankey, brother of Earl Mankey, and Jeanette. I'm going to butcher her last name. It's because it's not written on here. From Concrete Blonde.
Yes.
Napolitano.
Yes.
There you go.
Yeah.
That's a cool record. But
Soraya, we might have to go record shopping.
This is one I wanted to. I don't know if this is a Paisley band, but this record never gets talked about. Nobody ever brings this one up when they talk about the Plimsolls.
Come on.
That record is
please.
That record fantastic.
Yeah.
And tying into the Jim Rowland book that we were talking about earlier and the Keith Morris book, when I went to that San Diego book signing, it was Peter Case talking about his book, or he was there playing an acoustic performance just after Keith Morris was talking about, or just before Keith Morris was talking about his. So there is a connection. Yeah, that record is fantastic.
Yes, it is.
Yeah. And another good one and another favorite episode that you guys did is this one. I loved it when Matt, I think it was talking about flying his girlfriend over.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Kind of scamming. But this is
the label's money.
This is my favorite record.
Wow, the Dream
of the Dream Syndicates.
Wow,
look at that! Jeff.
Because it's got Paul B. Cutler on guitar.
Yeah,
and I just love his guitar playing. And I think my favorite Dream Syndicate record is probably not The Days of Wine and Roses,
which is typically what people pick.
Yeah, I think it's the one that came after that. I'm having a brain
Medicine
fart.
Show?
Yeah, and this one's got lots of songs off of there, like the Medicine Show.
Is that a live record?
This is a live record. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Raji's. Come on, Jeff, pull out your copy.
It's buried over there. I gotta climb over work stuff to get to it, but that's
a really good one. And Paul B. Cutler just goes off on that album.
Absolutely, great guitar player. So they only had him for a short period of time, but made some great records and some live shows.
Yeah.
And we've only heard good things about Paul B. Cutler. And we will say, we were talking about unicorns earlier, so we tried reaching out to Paul, but unfortunately he did not accept our invitation to join the podcast, but he would be one of our unicorns as well.
Yeah, that would be so awesome. He's played in so many cool bands.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. So you guys definitely went around my question of the favorite SST release. Okay, I can respect that. I'll pick one.
I'll pick. I have to go with My War probably because it was
I'm not
just like
surprised.
Black Phone?
I it was like a gateway drug for me for sure, and I still listen to it if I have to go into a really stressful meeting or something like that and like be aggressive, I'll put on My War
Nice.
and just like psych myself up.
I love that.
So-
and like you guys, it probably changes day to day or week to week. And why do you have to narrow it down to one favorite release? I get it, but just for fun. And Ryan, you kind of cringed when I asked the question.
Oh,
So
it's
like,
so we.
who's your favorite child, right?
Yeah, I know. We had such a hard time picking our top 5 relatively obscure releases from episode 100 to 200, much less the number one of all time, right?
Yeah,
and
understood.
so, and
I'll assign you one, Ryan, if you want, because I know probably what it is.
Well, I would. Well, I don't know. Maybe
is it
you
New
do.
Day Rising? I bet it's that.
I'm cycling in my head records by Husker, Dino, and probably Firehose. The one that keeps flashing in my mind the most might be Ragin' Full On. So how about that one?
I love
New Day
it.
Right. But like, oh man.
Ragin' Full On is a record Ryan and I think bonded over too, hey?
For
when
sure.
we first met each other?
Oh, 100%. You know what? Okay, so here's a great Brant story, okay? So I'm working at the record store, and Brant and I are just starting to get to know each other, like, do you like this record? Oh yeah, they're cool. Yeah. Like just feeling each other out at the record store, right? And then I'm taking the bus home after my shift is over, and where we grew up, or where I grew up, and Brant moved to that city at that point. All our buses are green, and so he used to call me, the green limousine. I'm gonna go take the green limousine home, and Brant has got, I think you had like a Geo Metro or a Chevy Sprint, like it was like a little tiny 2-door, right, a stick shift. And Brant's like, "Oh, I'll drive you home," and I'm like, "Oh, cool, okay." I'm like, free car ride from a stranger, well, why not? And so. And then we get to the town we lived in, it's like a 10-minute drive anywhere. And we got to my place, and I said, "Hey, well, do you want to come in? Look at let's go look at my records," right? And Brant comes in, and he sees I've got My War on vinyl, Fringe Records version though. That's a Canadian licensed version of My War, Fringe Records. And Brant, I remember like him flipping and pulling it out, and him just going, "You're lucky to have this," and I think I've told that story on the podcast before, but Brant mentioning My War, and it's like, that's like one of our first moments was over the My War record.
Wow, I love that.
That's 20 plus years ago for sure.
Wow. So there's a history, yeah. So Ragin' Full On is a great record for me. All the Firehose releases I love. If'n I love too. And New Day Rising is a great release. But I think my ultimate favorite SST release is Up on the Sun by the Meat Puppets. So
yeah,
I mean, it was such a departure after the 1 and 2, their first 2 albums, and then they go from this more aggressive sound, more of a raw sound, and then they have this more, I know people like to say country influence on it, but there's definitely more of a little bit more pop, I guess you would say, compared to 1 and 2. But Up on the Sun was a release that when I first listened to that Meat Puppets record, I was blown away. But that's
a killer record. I actually listened. Meat Puppets are a band I'll go back to over and over, but I actually listened to that record just recently because of Jim's book. Something he said in it was like, I gotta go listen to that.
I'm intrigued. Yeah. I'm definitely intrigued. Congratulations on making the book, you guys. So
thank you.
That's definitely an honor and well deserved.
Absolutely.
Hey, can I sneak in a quick record flash? I'm
Absolutely.
So Brant knows the Paisley Underground way better than me. Like I said, that's not my sweet spot. But I went digging in my shelves for some Paisley, and I came across this one, which I forgot I had Battle of
Yes.
the Garage is Volume 3.
Yes.
The Paisley Underground. Where does this one sit with you guys? Because I listened to it today, and it just sounds like good old-fashioned 80s garage rock to me.
Yeah, I would definitely say that that's if you're gonna talk Soraya's version of Paisley Underground, which is the purest form,
Not this.
it's definitely a stretch. But I love that record. I would say
Yeah.
it's more of a garage rock feel
Yeah.
and less Paisley. I think that's a fantastic compilation that you have there, Ryan. And I love
All four of them are great.
Yeah, yeah. Those Battle of the Garages are definitely good releases. I think that's a Vox.
It
Right.
is. It's the
Yeah.
Vox. Yep. This is Volume 3. There's 4 volumes. They're all killer.
Agreed.
And I probably have not listened to this one as much as Volume 1 and 2.
Yeah.
And so it was not very familiar when I put it on today, and I flipped it over a couple of times. Like, it's solid. It has aged really well.
Yeah.
But you've covered like the Telltale Hearts on your show, for
Yeah.
example.
So we like to say that the Vox record label are cousins of the Paisley Underground. Definitely 80s bands that were heavily influenced by 60s, and there was a scene involved. So we definitely see some similarities there. Me probably a little bit more so than Soraya, but yeah. So once we decided to venture out past the 4 primary bands and go outside the tree, some of the limbs that were a little bit farther out, right? So we definitely decided that the Vox bands were of a similar similar love for music of the 60s, but bringing it into the 80s at that time. So yeah, that's a fantastic compilation, Ryan. I'm glad you brought that up. So I mean, it's got the name of the scene right in it, the Paisley Underground version. So yeah.
I have a recommend too. Then, since we're doing that,
Oh.
I wasn't going to bring these up, but
Spiels.
Do it. I have my pen ready. Do it.
This is a recommend. I'm wondering if you know about these compilations. These are newer. It's these 12-string high. I know you've talked about 12-string. You had an episode, I think, about 12-string Rickenbackers, right?
yes.
You mentioned these before.
Yeah. These are on that label, You Are the Cosmos.
Oh, okay.
I'm sure you've talked about that label because I feel like there's probably some stuff on there.
But
these are really good.
Those compilations I'm not familiar with. But
I don't know if like the Sid Griffin is on this one, but these are really good. And you can probably still get these. The Parson Redheads, they're a cool band. These are good. These are really good. And they're all like, look at the back cover. It's all 12-string headstocks.
I'm loving this.
Yeah. These are all of these songs. These are all double albums, and they're all songs that are played with 12-string Rickenbackers.
So Brant, when were these released approximately?
They're
90s?
pretty new. They're not that old. Like
this
3, 4, 5 years ago.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
I'm definitely gonna have to go on Discogs now.
Yeah, you can probably still get these from You Are the Cosmos, I bet.
Nice, even better.
I got these direct from Get Hip, so
nice. Thanks for that recommendation, for sure.
Yeah. We'll probably be talking about it in a future episode.
Absolutely.
Brant always earns his keep somehow. You know?
Well, it sounds like it goes both ways, so I think you guys make it a good team. And if the podcast is any indication, then absolutely. As Soraya was mentioning, you guys bring out the humor, but still bringing out great information. Again, I totally recommend for our listeners to go check out the podcast. And Soraya, I think we discovered you can find it pretty much anywhere, right? You Don't Know Mojack, wherever.
Yeah, I've seen it across a number of different streaming platforms. So. And
then you guys have your webpage, and you're on Facebook as well. You Don't Know Mojack.
We don't have a web page because we stopped paying the hosting fees.
Oh.
They are on Twitter.
Like Ryan said earlier, we jam Econo, so yeah.
We are familiar. We know the model.
We can relate. So one last question. Anything that you're looking forward to in the future in wrapping up this next 4 or 5 years? Any releases that you see coming down the pike. Yeah.
All of them. In fact, like these are like our next 2 episodes. I have the records here because I'm prepping. These are
Look
like
at this.
Brant
Boom.
Heart, Intolerance,
Boom.
and Dinosaur Jr. Bug.
Oh,
Wow.
So like, if
Come
anybody thinks our best years are behind us,
Yeah. There's
like
proof.
not even
Otherwise.
close.
Yeah. There's proof contrary.
Yeah. So,
Ryan, anything for you that
Well, Brant kind of alluded to it. So did I. I mean, Dino is like really, really high up on my list. So Bug, it's hard to pick. I mean, I'm looking forward to forcing us to find new things to say about stuff we've already covered too.
Oh,
That's like super, super challenging. We're already hitting some of it. And so any particular releases, all of them. But I'm really interested at how much harder it's going to get too.
I think you guys are up for the task. I think there's good people tackling this. So
thank you.
Thank you guys.
Your show's awesome too, by the way. A big fan. I always listen to it, and I always learn new and interesting things. And I'm always like, you always cost me money because I'm always like trying to track things down that you talk about on your show.
Yeah.
And you give like, I think I talked about this on our show. I got the True West box set, the CD box set, and just like being able to listen to that and then listen to like a deep dive on it is awesome. And the Bill Bartell episodes, those are so awesome.
Those were fun.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. We want to do some more of those. We understand there's a documentary.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I was going to ask you if you knew what the status of that was. I think Dave Markey's making it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So we were fortunate to have him on our show, and they're continuing the interview and filming process. So I think editing is a little ways off. So right now they're still getting content and actually jumping on some plane trips to visit people on different parts of the country. So
yeah,
right on. Really, sorry, Jeff. You're trying to wrap up the interview, and I keep bringing up new things. So sorry about that.
No, we wanted to respect your time. So I could go on talking to you guys forever, but I always try to keep to an hour because
I came on with an agenda, clearly, right? So like, I actually have a list of questions here for you guys. So we might have to have you on our show sometime, so I can just grill you.
There you go.
Yeah.
We're open to a question or two. I don't know if we have an answer, but all right. Well, thanks again, you guys, so much, and thank you so much for undertaking this. SST is a big deal to me. I want to say that was probably Up on the Sun was my gateway, and then went back, and I really, really like your approach and doing release sequentially from beginning to end. You're not going to miss anything. So thank you guys so much for all of your time researching, and thank you for all the time, because I know it takes a lot of time to edit these and put these out and research. Soraya and I both know this is it's an undertaking, and we really appreciate what you guys both have done. And
thank you, and back at you. And love your IPR podcast, Jeff. So
thank you.
Keep that going for sure. That's awesome.
Well, I was hoping that you didn't see that because I copied your idea to go sequentially. So I'm a little bit embarrassed to say, but I thought your guys' idea was so great. And
not at all. I doubt we came up with the idea, but so it's anybody's free to do it. In fact, like we have suggestions for lots of different labels that people should be, we don't have a monopoly on that idea. So have at it, but that's a good one to do.
That's my homage to you guys, by the way. But I didn't want to come out and say it because I thought it was too obvious. But
no, it's awesome. It's a good one.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Looking forward to more of it.
Thank you. That was definitely influenced by you too. So
thank you.
Well, thank you both for having us on. We really do appreciate it. Keep it up yourselves, and let's get to the finish line, both of us.
Let's do it.
Well, there is no finish line for you.
Yeah,
you can just keep going on and on because now you've got all these garage rock bands to cover. You can
absolutely,
Soraya. You can do the Chesterfield Kings and the Liars. It's okay. You can.
I can. Yeah, I'm learning.
All right, you too. Thank you so much. We really appreciate it.
Thank you. Take care.
All right.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Bye.
Soraya, what did you think about those two guys?
They're a lot of fun.
Yes,
I'm glad we had them on.
absolutely.
They're so much fun to listen to.
Yeah, their podcast is so great.
Yes. And please go seek them out. You Don't Know Mojack. It's a great podcast series. And if you're a fan of the SST label, you want to hear this.
Yeah, and there's 214 episodes now, so that would be kind of daunting to start from the beginning, but by all means, like, look at if you go on iTunes, for example, all of their episodes are there, every single one.
Yeah.
So just look through those and find one of the releases that maybe you like or wanted to know something about, and just jump in there. I think Opal is a good place to start. I'm a little bit biased, but they do a great job on talking about David Roback and Rain Parade and Suspects with Steve Wynn and Indra Smith, and they just do a lot of research. And you don't need to start from the beginning and listen to all 214 episodes. Just find one, but I guarantee if you listen to one, you're probably going to want to go back and listen to at least a few more.
Yeah, definitely support them. If SST or any of the bands that released on SST are your thing, definitely support this podcast because we really enjoy them. We think you will too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. We've learned a lot.
And just as a side note for Brant, I already have the Liars in my collection.
Yeah.
I'm not adverse, damn it.
You are not. No, you are not. In fact, Soraya, this episode was your idea.
Yeah.
So yeah.
You're welcome.
I say thank you because I had no qualms about agreeing to that when it was your idea. My only thought was, and certainly there are the releases that do overlap between the SST and our discussion, but my only thought when you brought it up is what is this discussion going to be like, and as far as the Paisley Underground, and these guys were so gracious to come on.
Perfect.
Yep, and they know their stuff.
Yes, they do.
Not only do they know Mojack, they know a little bit about Paisley Underground, right?
They do. They do.
Yeah.
They had us beat.
Yeah, definitely.
So now we got homework to do.
We do. Yeah, I'm gonna go look for those 12-string.
Yeah.
Double releases.
Yeah.
Heck yeah, I am. Yeah, for
All
sure.
right, Jeff, should we say goodnight?
We should.
Mi gente, a gruviar.
Groove on, Paisley people.
You know, we have a pretty defined division of labor in order for us to fit it in our schedule week after week.
So do you do the editing then, Ryan?
Yep. I do it like the second we record, basic, like, you know, unless one of our kids has a volleyball game or something like that, we record Sunday mornings.
Okay.
And then Brant will send it to me Sunday night. And then I'll pick it up after work on Monday. I'll edit it in the car while I'm outside my kid's dance studio.
Wow.
And so I sent it to him last night, but I figured out that I made a mistake. So I'm going to go back in, and I got to take out like 30 seconds at one point and move it all back perfecto and do all the Mike Watt drop-ins again. But that'll only take a bit of time. So every week, and then the second I hit send to Brant, that's when I start on the next episode.
Okay.
He's already been on the next episode for 3 days by the time I get there.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you got a well-oiled machine going.
It sounds pretty militaristic, you know, when I describe it that way. But it is, you know, it's something that we have to squeeze in amongst our day jobs, just like you guys. And And frankly, some nights it's like it's not easy to stay awake past 7.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
like,
No, I can relate. Yeah.